Do you know that you have 168 hours a week? Everyone has the same amount of time. So it's not a question of do you have enough time? It's more a question of how are you investing your time? That's what we're talking about today is we are debunking the myth of structure and routine so that you can open up space in your days and truly become high performing. Stay tuned. You're going to want to take some notes for this one. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Clarity in Action. Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Clarity in Action. And I have been so excited for this episode because we get to talk about structure and routine today, which is something that I love and has just helped me immensely. But I know for many of us, it is just the opposite. So many of us, we hear the word schedule, we hear the word routine, and it just sends a shiver up our spine. So we are here debunking the myth of structure. And I am so excited to have my new friend, Lisa Woodruff. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Clara, thank you so much for having me.
So, I want to dive in and just kind of talk about this. When we talk about sort of structure, routine, why is having a structure and a routine so important for us in leadership and entrepreneurship and in helping us achieve our goals?
It really comes down to decision making. You're only going to be able to make so many decisions a day. So do you want to make high level decisions or do you want to make low level decisions? And if you don't have any systems or habits or structures, you must make the low level decisions in order to function and live, which does not leave you any cognitive capacity to make the bigger decisions. And once I realized that, then I was like, okay, let's put some systems and habits in place so that I have more time and capacity to do things that are new and novel and different instead of making the same decisions over and over and over again every day.
So true. I've been talking with a lot of people about decision fatigue, which is kind of what you're talking about. And we sometimes forget that our brain is a muscle and we tax it all day long. And by having things in their place, it makes it easier for us. And I love that. I would love to hear a little bit about your story. What was your story that brought you to understand the importance of this?
Yeah, I think the female lived experience, right? Like you move out of your childhood bedroom into whatever kind of dwelling you're going to have in your 20s and everything is new and everything is novel and your parents can't tell you what to do because now this is your place, darn it. And then you realize, shoot, that means I have to do the cleaning and the laundry and the dishes and the food and what's for dinner is always your decision. And then you add on complexities, jobs, spouses, kids, whatever you want your adult mix to be. And pretty soon you start realizing, wow, like the days are really full of a lot of decisions that you want to do, people to care for, things you want to do, be, and have. And you just run out of energy. Like you just run out of energy eventually. And interestingly, I was an in-home professional organizer for 6 years. And in those years, a lot of the women that I would organize had found that they had adult ADHD. And so I did a lot of research on this. And they found that when women who have school-age children, their children get older and either don't need them as much in school or they've gone off to college, that's when they're diagnosed with ADHD. And it's the loss of the structure of the school day and the school system for the adult mother that makes the ADHD more noticeable. So that structure of school really gives us a structure. So if you don't have children and you don't work outside of the home, you have less structure. Let's just use the example of COVID. Like March 2020, all of your structure went away and everything was hard and heavy because it was a very scary time, but also because literally all the rules and any structure that you had got thrown out the window. And the people that got back to quote unquote normal or whatever their new normal was going to be faster are people who had either themselves or somebody put structure in place for them.
So interesting. I had never even thought about that, but you're absolutely right. That is just really crazy to think about and right on the money. I work with a lot of leaders. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and when we start talking about things like time blocking and scheduling and all that, I mean, you can just see it in their face. They're just like, oh God, no, I'm not going to do that. And oftentimes, it's this idea of, I got into this because I want to do things my way and I don't want to have someone tell me what to do. Why do you think so many people fight it? Why do you think that there is such a negative thought around a schedule?
So entrepreneur leadership, both of which things that I'm passionate about and love and am doing and have done. I think that, especially as an entrepreneur and a leader, like people follow you, like you have new and novel ideas. And so you think, well, structure and habits, that's what everybody else does. And I'm new and novel, so I'm not going to do what everybody else does. And I fought that for a long time. And what happens is that is true. It could be yes. And if you are disciplined as a leader, if you are disciplined as an entrepreneur, you can grow a team and you can grow something even bigger than yourself because you're able to leverage systems and habits and routines in order to do that versus having to do everything of your own efforting will. And you mentioned that the brain is a muscle. So the prefrontal cortex is where all of our executive function is. And I've been doing a lot of study on executive function. I'm actually getting my PhD right now. And it is a muscle. There are so many things that our brain does, but there's a leveling to it. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader, listen up because this is the important part. Your executive function does 8 different things. The first thing it does, all executive function does, is working memory. Like you're listening to this podcast and you might be driving. So you are like watching the road and listening and trying to remember, and your brain is processing in real time. And as you're listening, you might have a prospective memory thought like, oh, I just drove by the gas station. I need to remember to get gas on the way home. Okay, so now you've got that in there. So you've got all this going on, this prospective memory, working memory. They're toggling back and forth for all of your attention. That is how you are from the time you leave home until you get home or around other people. Like you're using your working memory. But there are a whole bunch of other executive functions that are like lined up behind working memory. And unless working memory gives them a break, they don't get a chance to play. So you've got task initiation, task on time on task, organization. These are all your executive functions. And then there's one in the very back of the line, and she is planning. And planning is an executive function. And you cannot possibly plan if you are constantly efforting and using your working memory. You can't plan and do something at the same time. So as leaders, as entrepreneurs, your superpower is thinking, taking time to not do, but to think and plan and be strategic and think about what is the implication of AI? What is the implication of the world going back to, not globalism, but whatever the heck we're going into? Like you should be thinking about these things, dreaming, thinking, pondering, and then planning to execute with your team.
Yeah.
But if you're remembering all the little tasks and you don't want to have any systems and you're going to resist all that, you know what you're sacrificing? Planning time, because she will not insert herself. She will not make you stop doing what you're doing in order to plan. She'll just sit back there and go, well, maybe we'll plan next year. Maybe we'll plan next year. And you don't make as much progress as you want to make because you're not using the highest level executive function, which is planning.
I think that's really fascinating because, I love the reframing that thinking time, planning time is a superpower because having that strategy is what makes a leader great because that's part of their role. But I think we tell ourselves that's lower level time. Like that's not where we should be spending our time because we don't think we're doing. Like I think sometimes as leaders and entrepreneurs, we tell ourselves we have to be out there doing. That's the real guide of if we're productive, and we don't think about thinking time equating to productivity time. What do you think?
Well,
like I see what you're saying, but I think with entrepreneurs, especially because they're not actively doing something, it's like thinking seems more passive to them. So maybe they don't think of it as high level as it needs to be.
So there are a couple thoughts came to mind. One, if you're a solopreneur, it's a little bit harder because you have to do the doing. I'm assuming you're not a solopreneur. You have a team. You're leading a team. You're leading an organization. You're leading something. So if you're leading people and you're not doing the strategy and you're doing, then you're micromanaging and people aren't liking it and you have not trained them well enough or empowered them to do what they need to be doing. Like if you truly want to make impact, if you want to create something that has never been created before, you cannot do that while you are doing. You must have reflection time in order to do that. And that's truly what an entrepreneur does, is an entrepreneur takes something that does not exist and then brings it to the marketplace. And then creates the team and the systems around it to deliver that. And you wouldn't, maybe you would, but it would not be efficient. It wasn't efficient for me. When I was an entrepreneur doing my own books and everything on my website, like the first thing I did was hire an executive assistant and then hire a bookkeeper so that I could keep pivoting and iterating what my company was going to be. You need to keep training and delegating and creating systems and then plugging people into the systems to do the jobs in a business. Same at home.
Yeah.
Even though you're the only person, you still need to systematize what you're doing at home so that you're running the script while you're daydreaming and thinking about something else, not thinking about when was the last time I did laundry? When was the last time I placed a grocery order?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is a mindset shift. So how do you work with your clients to get them to shift their mindset into understanding the importance of delegation, the importance of time blocking from something that was not something they wanted to do to the critical understanding of its importance?
Yeah. So the bummer of it is my audience is people running their own homes. So there's nobody to delegate to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something, as I'm getting my PhD, I realize, the big myth right now, or the big talking point right now in the media is, well, men aren't doing enough, so have them share the load. Well, that's not really working. So that's not really a solution. Not everybody's married also.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you run a household? How do you create systems? Because no households have systems. Every single one you have to cobble together. So I've created a couple of systems that you could put into place, like the Sunday basket system or the binders we have that replace your file cabinet so that they're portable and smaller, and you could take them if you have to evacuate for a hurricane or a fire. So those systems need to be put into place, but then applying business principles, leadership principles to the household. Time block your housework. And if it doesn't all get done, that's how much it's getting done this week. Like, don't just do housework for the rest of your life. It gets 90 minutes. Laundry is done on Friday. The meals are ordered and planned on this day. Otherwise, housework takes anywhere from 28 to 36 hours a week. Did you know that? Like, so much time.
Mm-hmm.
So we really it is a job. Housework is a job. And the household economy is how the entire world runs. 68% of US GDP is household spending. So whatever the female head of household is spending money on is what is being made in the marketplace and how the world economics are running. And we do not value our time and the impact that we have in how we run these households. Reduce the amount of work you're doing, make strategic decisions, and then free up your time to do what you're uniquely gifted and created to do. That's what I want people to do.
Clarity in Action is proudly sponsored by Telehealth for Her, where women's health finally gets the attention it deserves. At Telehealth for Her, they offer professional, comprehensive medical care designed to optimize your hormones, restore your gut health, and boost your energy. Because let's get real. Who doesn't need more energy? Your body is the foundation of everything you build. So let's make sure we are fine-tuning it for optimal performance. So if you've been out there crushing it in life, but still feeling a little bit off with some of that brain fog, hormone changes, sleepless nights, or emotions that are all over the place, I'm here to tell you, you are not alone. Telehealth for Her helps ambitious women just like you take back control and feel like yourself again so that you can keep leading with purpose and power. Check them out at mariahprinceallen.com or Telehealth for Her and start your journey back to a vibrant, unstoppable you. Clarity in Action is proudly sponsored by My Cluck Hut. Yes, the soap company that is the one your mother should have warned you about. Now, don't let the name fool you. This eco-friendly soap company will get you clean without feeling dirty. But you know what? My Cluck Hut is about more than just getting clean. They have built and continue to grow a community that gives a cluck about the planet, about people, and about creating a reality where diversity and sustainability are not a pipe dream, but fundamental core values. So when you shop with My Cluck Hut, you're not just buying soap. You're choosing to be a part of something bigger than any one of us can be alone. So if you believe in shopping with purpose and from a brand that isn't afraid to speak truth to power, then go check them out, mycluckhut.com. The 2025 Tennessee Pride Chamber Allied Business of the Year. My Cluck Hut, it's more than a soap company. It's a clucking revolution. And I think that that really ties beautifully in the workplace
Yes.
because we have to look at, again, what is our highest and best use. And
Mhm.
again, time blocking, because time will, equip itself for whatever time you give it. So bringing in deadlines and again, the delegation of it all and understanding, it's not all going to get done right now. And so really
Mhm.
looking at the highest and best use. So, for me, one of the things I do with a lot of leaders is I sit down and I really get them clear on their role. You mentioned the idea of micromanaging. I think when they're not clear on their
Yeah.
role, that's when they start doing other
Yeah.
things. And so I think, it's the same thing. It's getting very, very clear. And then I think the planning, I remember this was something I learned from my mom. There was 4 kids in our household. My mom was a working mom, but every Sunday she planned the
Yes.
week, the menu, and it
Yep.
was just, again, to make it easier. And one of the things that I do with a lot of the people that I work with is I teach them on Sundays to have a CEO meeting with themselves. The same thing. Let's get our week together. Let's get our schedule together and, working with those. So if somebody is sitting back and they're starting to spiral and they're like, okay, I hear what she's saying, but they haven't done anything, where is an easy place to start? Like, where do you usually get somebody to start?
Yeah. So I start with the Sunday basket, which is the household CEO meeting version
Mhm.
of what you're talking about. So I do the Sunday basket and I plan my household. And then I do my Friday workbox and I plan my work. And I do that both on Sunday. And thinking about, when you're in a leadership role and people are looking to you, or you're running the company and you're the entrepreneur, you don't have the luxury of being like, oh, I don't know what I'm having for lunch today. Because what's going to happen is you're not going to eat and then you're going to get a migraine and then you're not going to make
Mhm.
very good decisions. So the more planning you can do on Saturday, like I this week laid out all of my clothes, like I was in kindergarten because I'm doing a lot of interviews this week and I didn't want to have to think about that. I
Mhm.
make sure that I have duplicates of all of my makeup so that when one runs out, I have the next one. All of these things you would do in business, do in home, and they will support you in the time that you have in work. So
Yeah.
a Sunday basket would be the equivalent of what you're doing in your CEO time. But a
Mhm.
really quick win would be just take your bathroom, like where
Yeah.
you get ready in the morning. Do you only have there what you're actually using? Get rid of any of the samples, get rid of anything that's expired. And
Mhm.
then when you buy new, or if you can do it right now, buy duplicates of everything. Have a back stock of every single thing you use in the bathroom. No one wants to run out of deodorant, for crying out loud. Like you
Mhm.
should always have a backup of your favorite lipstick, your deodorant, your shampoo, all of those things so that you can just keep running at high efficiency and not slow down to, running out of lip balm or something
Mhm.
like that.
So true. You talk about the importance of reflection time. I want to talk a little bit about carving out time for life
Mhm.
because this to me is part of time blocking. And I think one of the reasons that we hedge away from having a schedule is because we've been taught to do it the wrong way. Most of us have been taught the schedule just for the quote unquote important things, meaning business. And
Right.
one of the reasons we don't have a life is because we don't time block for our
Yeah.
life. So I tell people when they plan their schedule, the very
Yeah.
first thing that needs to go into their schedule is their life. How do
Yeah.
you talk with people about putting that part of it together?
Yeah, that's so hard, isn't it? And to be honest, I was not good at this in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s, but now in my 50s, I'm much better. So if
Mhm.
you're like, oh, some of it comes with my kids are grown now. And so even though I help with the grandkids and all of that, I do have more capacity and I can say no. Like when it was my own
Mhm.
kids, I couldn't say no. So I actually have 4 calendars. So 2 work and 2 personal.
Okay.
So my 2 work calendars, one is meetings. So like when I'm meeting with any like this was on my calendar as a meeting. And then the other is how I plan to use my work time that is not meeting time. So any tasks that need to be done and they overlay, but my team can only see the meetings time. They can't see where I'm getting everything else done. So if they
Mhm.
schedule a meeting, I know they've taken a block that I'm supposed to do something. I move the task somewhere else. Then I have 2 private calendars, and one is just my regular life, like how I want to spend my time. So if I'm working out, if I'm having a date with my husband, if I'm getting my nails done, going to Pilates, all that is on my private calendar. And then I have my daughter have a calendar that she shares with me so I can see everything that's going on with her and the grandchildren because I am very active in supporting her as a single mom, go to a lot of doctor's appointments, do a lot of the driving. So I can
Mhm.
see as she schedules things on her calendar, that's actually my personal, and then it'll dovetail along. And so I'm always looking at like, who am I meeting with in my business? What work do I need to get done in my business? What do I personally in my 50s need to do for myself and my marriage? What
Mhm.
does my daughter need and my grandchildren, and how can I support them? And I'm constantly looking at and thinking about what is the top priority and what needs to get moved in order for my highest use to be used at all times.
And I love that. And I think, again, so much of this dovetails beautifully into work, not only carving out time for your person, but then looking at your departments or the people that you're leading and really making sure that you're looking at those. I essentially run 4 different businesses. So when I sit down on Sunday, it's what am I doing for this part of my business? What am I doing for that part of my business? So every week I touch each of my businesses strategically. And then again, it's not about the hours I have, it's about how I use them so that I can say, this is how much I have. How am I going to divide and conquer for its highest and best use? Another thing that I see is, and you talked about this a little bit, the idea that what do we say yes to? What do we say no to? And we have to understand that when we say yes to something, we also have to say no to it. So do you have any tips for sort of checks and balances that you run through to start to assess, is this really the best use of my time? Is this something that I should do or something that I should pass on?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, I'm very blessed because I do get to make a lot of decisions about how I use my time. I could do personal things during the day because I always work on Saturdays. So I know I'm getting the right hours in. Plus, who's going to check me? I'm the boss. So I have a lot of that flexibility. The other thing I would say, which I guess I don't really hear anywhere, but somewhere along the way, I just made this decision. There are 168 hours in the week, which is a lot of hours. So even if you sleep 8 hours a night, which how many of us do, but let's say you do 60 hours a week of sleeping, you still have 108 hours. You work 40 hours a week, you still have 68 hours. I mean, do you really realize you have that much time? And so how do you want to be using this time? And I spend a lot of time watching TV with my husband because he likes to watch TV. So I'll do jigsaw puzzles while I watch TV with him. But if I'm not watching TV with my husband, I'm not watching TV on my own. Like I'm not using my hours to watch TV. So if I'm not watching TV with my husband, I am active. I'm active with my grandchildren. I'm reading. I'm working out. I'm doing something. I could not have done that in my 40s. One, I just didn't have enough energy and I didn't have enough or mental bandwidth, space, and organization. And really from 40 to 50, I moved the capacity I have to do things from a couple hours a day to a 14-hour day. I can do a 14-hour day every day over and over and over and over again because I eat the right foods, I get the right sleep, I take the right supplements. And I really, over that decade, refined all of my habits, got rid of drinking the Coke, got rid of the being up in the middle of the night so that my body and my mind are always optimal. And so I have a lot of capacity. And if you were to look at my calendar and throw a couple of extra curveballs in there, I'm going to be able to take them, move the other stuff off and keep going because of how much work I did in my 40s. I couldn't have just done that overnight. And so habits are slow and systems are slow. Implementation takes a long time to set up a system that's going to work. It's not always going to work. It's going to work about 80% when you put it in. You're going to need to pivot and iterate with that system. It takes a lot longer to put in a system than it does to maintain a system. So it's a big investment in you and your capacity going forward. But once you have habits and system in place, good ones in place, you're pretty much unstoppable. It's that book, The Slight Edge. You looks like 2 people are doing the same thing, but this one is creating positive habits and this one is creating negative habits. And 10 years later, like they're 2 completely different people. There's no quick switch to flip. But if you put in the concerted effort, you really can live an amazing, productive life with habits and systems that you put in over a decade.
I really appreciate the fact that you brought that honesty in because I do think people think it's going to be an overnight shift. And you're right. It's not, it's long, it's slow. You won't see the rewards right away. It's the continual doing it. And like you said, I can, people look at me all the time and they're like, how are you getting all this done? And I'm like, it's because I take care of myself and I take care of my time. I'm very clear on time being an investment. And when you start to understand those 160 hours, 8 hours, and you start to think about where am I investing them, you look at it very differently. So I love this. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now. You mentioned your PhD. Any other projects in the work for you?
Yeah, I'm coming out with a book June 28th called Escaping Quicksand. I've written a couple books about organizing and decluttering and getting your together. And I realized that I was like, there's something missing. I know that people can get organized, but people are getting stuck. Why are women, especially in midlife, getting stuck? And I realized that, like you said, most productive women have made a few key mindset shifts and changed changes in how they look at the world that allow them then to take different actions that aren't like matching containers and things like that. And so I gathered about 10 of those and I put them in the book, Escaping Quicksand. And they're the 10 steps to overcome the overwhelm of modern home life.
Amazing. And I love the title of that book. So let us know when it comes out so we can either bring you back or at least do some promoting with it, because that just sounds like something all of us can use. So, Lisa, this has been great. You gave us a lot to think about, very purposeful, very intentional, very proactive, so we can take back the control and live these beautiful lives, both personally and professionally. One last question I would like to ask you is, sitting where you sit now, learning everything you've learned up to this point, how do you define success for yourself today?
I really stopped judging myself in my 40s and living a perfect life and started to strive for excellence and give myself grace. So to me, it is being able to pick what I want to do next, not worry about if I'm going to succeed or not, but be that lifelong learner I was in fourth grade and really just embrace trying the next thing, meeting new people, networking, and just going with the flow.
Love it. Fantastic. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. Loved our talk. Can't wait to catch your book when it comes out, and just wish you continued success. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.